All right, welcome back to Saturday Drop Part 3. Uno, dos, tres. Part Trace. Part 1, we talked with Adam Jividan, a Super Browns fan, Super Buckeyes fan, Super Guardians fan, a Super Cavs fan, the great pronosticator, our college a partner in crime, and he also happens to be a mega soccer fan. So he brought us up to speed on World Cup soccer. We've learned a lot. Go USA! I know they beat Paraguay, and it's the largest it's ever been. So we talked about that. That's in part 1. We also talked about the NBA Finals, and my gosh, and when Tony, I'll talk to you about this here in a second. But my gosh, the Knicks came in and punched. As Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan to get punched in the face, and Houston got punched. I mean, San Antonio got punched in the face for sure. Largest comeback in NBA Finals history ever. So we talked about that in part 1. And we just finished up here in the last last segment, NASCAR out in Pocono, talking with Steve Wilson, editor-in-chief of Speedway Digest and our official NASCAR contributor. And now we got Tony Donohue on of the Tony D Podcast and Unverified, and our official IndyCar contributor. Sir, how are you? Happy Saturday.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been a couple of weeks. Yeah, it's been, I think the NHL Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals have 100% delivered. I mean,
oh, yeah.
You always want to see a Game 7, which seems like both series are heading for. But comebacks and, the intensity has been a lot of fun to watch. And it's hard to say as somebody who was just having a conversation. You and I were talking on these airwaves a year ago, and it was talking about how cool it is with the Pacers, and the Pacers made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Pacers made it to the NBA Finals, and just how intense and fun and, just joyous that was. And now we're here a year later. We got to watch one of the Pacers' biggest rivals in the New York Knicks have an opportunity to win. So it's been a little bittersweet, I think is the right term for it.
Well, you know what? Taylor Swift was there, so whenever you bring Taylor Swift into the arena, I think she's a plant. I think she's a plant. No, I'm just kidding. My daughter was like, I was like, okay, yeah, Taylor Swift, that's great, we love it. And in our industry, any mic is an open mic, and the radio gal, and you may have saw this, it kind of went viral. Of course, we've all got caught at some point saying something that maybe we shouldn't have gotten caught, good, bad, or indifferent. But hey, okay, maybe that shouldn't. But she's like, "Oh, Taylor Swift is here. This is what we're going to be talking about. Who cares what the, And she was just talking to be talking, and
well,
hot mic.
I think it's one of those things where it depends. If you're a Taylor Swift fan, you don't get sick of it. But if you're the sports fan, and it's cool to see the celebrities, right? You don't want it to be about celebrities, but it's been cool to see Ben Stiller, courtside cheering on the Knicks. It's been, Scotty McLaughlin, IndyCar driver, was at the game the other night on his birthday. So, it's been fun to watch, and we're going to have another great game here on Saturday night, and then we'll see what happens Sunday night when the Stanley Cup returns to Vegas with Carolina up 3-2 in that series.
That's amazing. We'll see what happens with the Knicks. You hate to preach the conspiracy theory, but you think the Knicks have not won the NBA championship in so long, forever, for never. You think they want to take it back home? So maybe they rest their starters. Maybe they just kind of take it easy and let let San Antonio cruise it out, and then they go to Game 7 and get a win at home. No, I like to really think about the conspiracy theory, but if you're the Knicks, come on. If you're the Knicks, you want to win that at home, right? So we'll see. But it's been exciting. It's exciting to watch. Let's move over to IndyCar. Obviously, IndyCar's off this week, and then they're back at it, Road America next week. A great course to watch. But you were out at Gateway to the wee hours of the morning last week, and I always think that track is a lot of fun. And it's night. I like the fire explosions as they're coming through. It doesn't match the Apache helicopters here at Indianapolis, but it's a damn close. Go ahead and walk us through Gateway. Yeah. It certainly was a great race, but yeah, if you had the stamina to stay up all night, go ahead.
Well, there's a couple things to run with there. One, you mentioned it, having a week off, and it seems like these IndyCar teams and drivers have not had a weekend off since probably mid-April. So we're going on 7 weeks of just constant, 8 weeks being on the road. You had the Indianapolis 500 test. You had the intensity of the Indianapolis 500 and what that brings. And then, oh, by the way, You got to go to the concrete jungle in Detroit, and then you got to come back the next week and go to Gateway. So the pyro was cool, man. I was probably the closest you could get standing on the back straightaway there. So I'm surprised I still have my eyebrows left. But
yes, you have your eyebrows.
but no, yeah, you're right, man. It was you look at Saturday. Saturday was a long day they had a media press conference at 9, first practice at 11. Then you had qualifying for both IndyNext and IndyCar, and then there was a high line and then a practice session. So, Saturday was, it was honestly like a 14-hour day for a lot of those teams. They don't get there right as the green flag flies for practice. They're usually there 3 hours beforehand. And then Sunday was a beautiful day. I actually ended up, for the first time, I'd never been to Busch Stadium. So I went over.
Oh, wow.
Same
on you, brother.
Yeah. So we went over and saw the Cardinals play the Reds. It was great. We bought $20 seats that included a hot dog and a Coke. And
I love it.
We were happy campers. And then great stadium, walked around a bunch, saw different sight lines of it, and then ended up going over to the racetrack. And it was like, okay, when's it going to rain? Because we know it's going to rain. And then overall, you look at, it was a great IndyNext race with Miles Rowe coming from last to win. And then the IndyCar race, Josef Newgarden and Marcus Ericsson were the class of the field. Marcus drove from 12th, pretty much drove his way to the lead by that first round of pit stops and had the best car early. Josef Newgarden was right there. Alex Palou and David Malukas kind of faded. And you really had those two drivers as your top tier guys. And then some of the strategy started kind of unfolding, and when you're going to pit, when you're not going to pit, when's the rain going to come, when's the rain not going to come. So that first rain delay, Marcus Ericsson was leading just after the halfway point, and it was like, okay, we're going to get a Marcus Ericsson win in rain. And then Kyle Collette, the rookie, was sitting there second, and I think Scott Dixon was third on some fuel mileage, and then they go back out and they run. Then they came back in for a rain delay, which Scott Dixon was leading on fuel mileage with Alex Palou second. And they knew they didn't have enough fuel. And Scott Dixon had to pit under an emergency situation under the yellow, so he had to go to the back end of the tail of the lead lap. And then Alex Palou runs out of fuel on pit road. So that kind of really spiced it up and set us up for a shootout towards the end, which Christian Rasmussen inherited the lead. And this is a guy that just signed the new contract with Ed Carpenter Racing. He won at Milwaukee last year in exciting fashion. He's been behind in the points this year. He's been right on that edge of the top 20 in the point standing. So he needed a good run. He ultimately finishes third. Josef Newgarden, driving hurt with that foot injury, wins. He's been the oval king. He's been the short oval king. He's won 3 of the last 4 ovals, like 4 of the last 6 at Gateway. And Marcus Ericsson drove his ass off, to be honest, and had one of the best cars and ultimately finished a bittersweet second. We talked to him after the race, and he's like, man, we had the best car. And if it's not Palou beating us on the road and street courses, it's Josef beating us on ovals. So, and then you had Christian Rasmussen ultimately finished third, and Rinus VeeKay with a great run to come home fourth. So, really good weekend for a lot of guys that needed it, which was Christian Rasmussen, Rinus VeeKay, Marcus Ericsson. Even Scott McLaughlin, who finished fifth, was a driver that, in all honesty, needed a good finish. He hasn't won a race since Milwaukee back in 2024. He had a great run in Indy, finishing third. So McLaughlin there being inside of the top 5 was good for him in the points as well. But ultimately, Josef Newgarden just getting it done. One of the best drivers of all time on the ovals. I think he's 9th all time now on the wins list. I think he tied Alonso Jr. He's 3 or 4 race wins behind Bobby Unser. And again, you and I are going to talk about this, but the silly season's right around the corner. Josef Newgarden is a free agent. Scott Dixon's a free agent. There's a lot of free agents right now, and this is the time, Tom, where you really start talking about free agency opening up. You get through the month of May, June 1st, some of these drivers can become what in other sports would be called an unrestricted free agent, where they can start going and talking to other teams. And I think we're in that period right now. So there's going to be a lot of things that are going to spice up next year's IndyCar field.
Oh, absolutely. And you thought we were excited to talk about, not excited, but the Will Power story was a big story. I don't look for Penske to get rid of Josef Newgarden, but I do maybe look for Josef Newgarden to possibly get rid of Penske, depending on how things go. I know he's been very disappointed with the teams here recently. Scott Dixon, I don't know. He's the Rick Mears of Chip Ganassi. I think he's the staple guy. So I don't know, but yes, we're definitely going to be following. I'm going to go back to your first trip to Busch Stadium. I know you're from the region and you're kind of a White Sox Cubs fan, or no, I think you're more of a White Sox fan if I remember right. But
Yep.
nonetheless, everybody knows I'm the biggest diehard Cardinal fan. My
Yeah.
son and I went to the last the last game at the old Busch Stadium, and the
Yep.
very first game at the new Busch Stadium. And now I've been able to take my grandson to, Busch Stadium, and he just loves it. But he's divided because his grandmother on the other side, or his mom's mom, is a Cubs fan. So he's like, and he's young. He's like, I don't know. I don't want grandpa. I'm like, you root for whoever you root for. But, so we had an opportunity to go. So great baseball town that is. But, it's proven now that, hey, now they've got IndyCar there. They don't have an NFL team there anymore. Of course, I got the Blues. But, IndyCar's big there. And they did a great job there with Gateway. We're halfway through the season. I mean, maybe give me your ultimate takeaway from the first half. I mean, we've got some core theme segments, the changing of the guard, if you will. While Alex Palou remains the gold standard, you look at younger drivers like Kyle Kirkwood with Andretti Global, David Malukas with Team Penske. My God, we've already talked about this, but you still think about David Malukas, how close he was to winning an Indianapolis 500. I've taken over as top performing drivers for their respective powerhouse teams midway through the season. What's your takeaway, sir?
Yeah, in St. Louis, we had a great time. The ballpark was great. It was
It's
free.
awesome. It's
We went to a
amazing.
place called Blueberry Hill, which is a restaurant there on the
Did you
west
find your
side of.
thrill? Did you find
Yeah,
your thrill there?
yeah, it was pretty cool. So it was.
Did you get my joke? You see what I did there?
Yeah, I did.
You just skipped right over. I want to make sure you got it. Go
They
ahead.
had that's a really cool place with a lot of St. Louis history.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, David Malukas is a huge story, right? We've been waiting for him to break through for that first victory, and I think I joined you the week of the race and picked him to win the race, and I thought he was going to be the winner, and obviously, he led he led corners 798 and 799 and got past right at the finish line. So I think there's only four drivers now all time that won the race but did not lead lap 199. If I'm not mistaken, it might be five drivers because you had Felix do it, you had Josef do it twice, and then you had Felix do it this year. So those are the only drivers that have won the Indianapolis 500 that didn't lead lap at the white flag. So Felix, Sam Hornish, the two Josephs. So that's very interesting. But with David Malukas, I mean, this is a kid that is going to break through. I thought he would perform better at Gateway last weekend. And as you mentioned, it's a great point. Gateway loves IndyCar. They love IndyCar there. They promote it. There's billboards all around. They treat the media so good. My goodness, Tom, it was like a convenience store in there. It was any type of food you wanted, snacks they had. It was incredible.
Oh yeah. It's great. It's amazing.
Love being down there. But yeah, I think just to your point about we're halfway through the season, it's Alex Palou. Yes, it's Kyle Kirkwood. So two of the same guys that were in the mix last year. But we have a new Indianapolis 500 winner. We're waiting to see when this new car is coming out. We're waiting to see when the new video game's coming out. And I think
gotta have a video game.
Yeah, one of these days. And I think what defines the season so far is, what's old is new, which is Alex Palou continuing to be dominant and continuing to win races. But where's he been the last couple of weeks, right? Like, he didn't win the Indianapolis 500. He ended up, I think, ultimately finishing 7th or 8th and then had that penalty. Detroit, he had 4 straight poles. He's been on the pole for 4 straight races and hasn't been able to win, right? The GP, Lundgaard wins it. The 500, it was Felix. Detroit, Palou ultimately wins the race from the pole, and then now comes back and didn't have the best night at Gateway. So Palou's still ahead in the points after that win in Detroit last week, but David Malukas is right there. He's a contender. I like what I've seen out of him. And this was the time last year where Kyle Kirkwood won at Gateway, but then kind of faded the remainder of the season and ultimately, I think, finished 3rd in the points, if I'm not mistaken. So Kyle Kirkwood's a guy I'm looking for to keep momentum up this summer and maybe giving a run for Alex Palou's money.
Well, we've seen the street court dominance, but we haven't really had much. We had Car, Indy GP, but next week is next week is a huge challenge as they go up to Road America for the road course. That is your Kyle Kirkwood. That is Uranus VK. That is a Will Power even, but those are the drivers that you look at, and Scott McLaughlin. Those are all Kyle Kirkwood especially, also David Malukas. Look for him to do well there at Road America, and it's so spread out that really, we talk about the push to pass rules and all of that new stuff that's coming up. Let's get a peek behind the curtain at Road America coming up next week.
Yeah, like you said, this is a race that in a 4-mile track is long. It tends to get spread out with green flag running, and remember we saw it last year. There was a lot of drivers running out of fuel. Ultimately, Santino Ferrucci ran out of fuel, finished fourth, and somebody threw him a Miller Lite to crack open at the end of the race. So, anything can happen. And you look at, Kyle Kirkwood's never won there before. David Malukas has never won there before. Lundgaard's fourth in points. He's never won there before. Pato, fifth in points. Josef, sixth. And then it's down to McLaughlin, Felix Eriksson, and Marcus Armstrong. These are all drivers, that are looking to move forward. Felix, people forget his only other career win came at Road America back in 2020. When's Scott McLaughlin going to break back through? He's on a winless streak dating back to the end of the 2024 season. So we're almost going on 2 years since we've seen Scotty McLaughlin in Victory Circle.
Yes.
Can Felix
too long.
Can Felix Rosenqvist be a guy that can continue to take that momentum, and from the Indianapolis 500? I mean, it's a draining situation. He finished sixth at Detroit, which was, I think, the best finish for an Indy 500 winner the following race in the last, decade or two, going back to 2012. So there was a lot of question marks. And then, as you mentioned, you've got guys like Scott Dixon looking for his first win of the season. Alexander Rossi, who dominated at Road America on his way to a win back in 2019. Will Power sitting there 17th in points. He needs to make his way up through the field. So, yes, there are a lot of question marks for Road America, and it really separates those towards the top from those that maybe aren't contenders because it's such a long track. It's a grueling track. And Scott Dixon told me this last year. He said, the one thing about Road America, especially during qualifying, is if you screw up early in your lap, it takes you think about it for so long because it's a 4-mile track. So qualifying is incredibly intense when it comes to Road America.
Well, there's a little bit of something about Road America. And, of course, June 9th, they had their private test at Road America. And Santonio Francini, I know I say that wrong every time. AJ Voigt racer obviously did very well at Indianapolis. He's a fan favorite, and he is one to look at. Nolan Siegel is another one. He clocked the second fastest time in the private test at Road America. What intel did we pull from that as we prepare for this next week?
Yeah, I think what happens when you test at Road America is, yes, you're testing for the race coming up in a couple of weeks, but you're also testing for Mid-Ohio, which is coming up in 3 weeks, which has some similar turns to Road America. It's not as big.
Right. Mid-Ohio is great, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But can you learn something that you could also take to Mid-Ohio in a setup? So good to see Santino up there as the fastest. This is another guy who's in a contract year. Seems like AJ Foyt and Larry Foyt love having him in that 14 car. And it goes back to what we mentioned about Josef. It's like, do you want to let your driver go as a team and see him go somewhere else and maybe come back and kick your ass? And if you're Josef or you're Santino, do you really want to leave that car that you've kind of been a staple in for the last, 5, 6, 7+ years? And maybe the grass isn't greener on the other side. Look at Will Power. He took himself out of a Penske car. Now he's first year at Andretti. He's 17th in points. Marcus Ericsson, 8th in points currently, but left Ganassi for Andretti, and it's taken him 2.5 years to get up to speed to contend for race wins and contend for podiums. I mean, you got to ask yourself, is the grass always greener? And I would say this. If you're Santino Ferrucci, you want to stay in that 14 car And if you're Josef Newgarden, why would you want to leave the 2 car? You've got a chance every year to win the Indianapolis.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, Santonio really is in a good position with AJ Foyt Racing. I think he is like, okay, I'm the next franchise player here for this team. Arrow McLaren, they're flexing their muscle a little bit. With Christian Lundgaard, he had a strong test there as well. And Christian Lundgaard, a little bit disappointing for Indianapolis, at least for his standards, and at least for Arrow McLaren, what they were expecting to happen with Indianapolis. But Christian Lundgaard he's like a rubber band. He always bounces back. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and you think about the win that he had at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway about a month ago at the road course race, and
yes, the road course, yeah.
And him, a free agent again, is that enough to re-sign him into that 7 car, which I think it is. But he's got to be better on ovals. I mean, he started 19th in the 500 this year, didn't have a good run. And you think about, he should be good on these road and street courses. He should be a lot better. He's currently 4th in points. He's been pretty consistent, couple podiums. I expect if he can perform well on the final 3 ovals, which is Nashville and then the 2 doubleheader weekend coming up in August at Milwaukee, and then do good on the street courses like Markham and Washington, D.C. that are still yet to come. I think there's a possibility that we see him in the top 3 at the end of the year for the standings.
So what do we think about Christian Rasmussen? He has become one of IndyCar's top oval racers in the 2+ season that he's been in ECR, and his victory at August at Milwaukee. But he's also had a good history, a good success at Road America by Firestone in the NXT as he won a race there in 2022 as a series rookie, and it was the first career victory in the IndyCar Development Series for him. Christian Rasmussen, what do you think about him? Always his name always messes me up too. That's okay.
Yeah, I think she looked at me. Or sorry, I just read something. Christian Rasmussen, yes. So he just got a contract, right? He was up for contract, and we didn't know what was going to happen. As we just talked about, if you're at Carpenter Racing, yeah, there's been some bad finishes for Christian Rasmussen this year. It hasn't been the look that maybe they would want. But this guy can win on an oval. He can win Phoenix, which he should have won this year. He got a little bit impatient and ended up crashing while leading and battling off Will Power. He ran his way all the way up from 19th to 3rd on the podium. So, it's almost the exact opposite of Christian Lundgaard. Christian Lundgaard needs to be contending for podiums on road and street courses, and whatever he brings to you on ovals is just a bonus. It's the opposite with Rasmussen. If he can do anything on road and street courses, great. But it's the ovals. You got to be contending and be up there on the ovals. And you look at the last couple of short ovals, he won Milwaukee last year. He wrecked the following week on the first lap at Nashville, wrecked leading this year at Phoenix, and then finished 3rd. So it's feast or famine for Christian Rasmussen. But again, it's exciting. The cameras are always going to be on that Splenda car on an oval, and that's why you re-sign him to a 2-year deal.
Talking with Josef. He's right here in front of my face. We're not talking to Josef Newgarden. We are talking to Tony Donohue. So now we're even, I guess. Tony Donohue with the Tony D podcast and Unverified. Hey, real quickly before we wrap it up and put a bowl on, in the last segment, in the NASCAR segment, we were talking about Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin, both the XL driver and owner, and how Denny Hamlin has a possibility to not be like a Mark Martin and get a championship against his own driver, Tyler Reddick. I look at Graham Rahal as a similar type of story. He's an owner driver. He's had some good luck this year. We know he's on the other side of his career. I mean, he's obviously going to always be a part of Rahal Letterman Racing. But how much longer does he have in the actual car to win a championship? I don't know. But he has been on the podium here recently. He has did well. He has performed well. He's got high spirits. Let's take a quick look at Graham Rahal as he goes into Road America. He also has had his own challenges there. But I look for, as we're halfway through this season, I look for Graham Rahal to at least finish the season very strong.
Yeah, he's a threat to be in the top 10 there. In the points, and I think where Graham has struggled has been the short oval package, and he qualified on that second row at Phoenix was a little bit more out to lunch at the Indianapolis 500 this year. Crashed out last week at Gateway.
Yeah.
I think for Graham Rahal, it's, he's my age. Graham and I are the exact same age. I'm a couple months older than him. And I had this discussion with him after he missed the Indianapolis 500 and he was thinking about retirement. And I said, dude, at our age, and obviously you're in a different financial and tax bracket than I am, but I don't know if the word retire is in our vocabulary. And I just thought to myself, I said, you know what? Graham's got a great family. Graham's got plenty of business opportunities outside of the car. And whenever he's ready to give it up, he's ready to give it up. But I think this resurgence this year where he was obviously on the podium, had a great run at Detroit a few weeks ago, ended up, I think, ultimately third, if not mistaken. He was third because I was on the elevator with him going up. He was on the podium, had a great run at the Indy GP, so he's getting the road and street course package figured out. If they can do anything on the short ovals, I think they'll be able to boost that entire program, not just Graham, but also Louis Foster and rookie Mick Schumacher. And I think Graham's in that car as long as the sponsors want him in that car. The Fifth Third Banks of the world, which is an Ohio company. United Reynolds.
Of course, it's an Ohio company.
which loves, United Reynolds, which loves having Graham Rahal in their car. As long as these sponsors still want him in that race car, and as long as he's still scoring podiums, I don't see Graham slowing down anytime soon.
Nice. Well, there's a few years left to go, but you wonder if his daughters, because he's a girl's daddy, by the way, if his daughters will go on the Force side of the family or on the Rahal side of the family. If history repeats itself, the girls go to the Force side of the family. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it would be cool to see. I mean, it's always fun to see these drivers, start to have their own kids, their kids showing interest. Scott Dixon's son's in a go-kart now. And
how cool is that? Yes.
Dan Weldon's kids are running the USF 2000 series. And,
that was amazing. Pause you there real quick. How cool was that to see Dan Weldon's kid on the podium at Indianapolis? I loved it. Gave me goosebumps. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was great. And it was a cool weekend because, his older brother Sebastian had ran there before, but Sebastian never ran the oval at Lucas Oil Raceway as Oliver did last month,
right?
Which was super cool. So, always cool to see that, and we'll see. This Graham's daughters, do they want to run road and street courses and run an IndyCar? Do they want to get straight line fever and run dragster? Or do they, I'm sure if you ask Graham, he'll say, I'd rather them play tennis or golf.
I don't know. It's in their blood. I mean, it's definitely in their blood, and they are pedigrees for sure. We've been talking with Tony Donohue of the Tony D podcast and Unfiltered, our official IndyCar contributor. Hope you guys catch up with our other segments that we've got. We talked World Cup in part 1 and the NBA Finals, and then we had NASCAR last segment, and then the IndyCar this segment. And guys, if you haven't, you YouTuber guys, we're building up our YouTube channel. All of our podcasts we've ever done is archived on YouTube. So you just got to hit the podcast channel and they're all there. Good, bad, or indifferent. There's been some good ones and some bad ones. Also, we have been doing some cooking stuff because I'm a world famous chef. Everybody knows that. So today I'm doing ribs. I'll have that posted up later on today, where I'm doing baby back ribs. Tomorrow, Tony, I'm doing beer can chicken. So that's going to be exclusive to the YouTube group. So if you're a YouTuber, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You like beer can chicken, do you?
I love beer can chicken.
I love beer can.
I mean, you name it, I'll eat it.
I'll send you the video, so maybe you can share it. Also, real quickly before I let you go, I know you're from the region up there, not necessarily Hammond, but it looks like the Bears. At least the road is paved to go to the Bears to come to Indiana, to Hammond, Indiana. Any thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things where it was, and I'm still kind of in this boat of like, I'll believe it when I see it, but everything continues to escalate towards Hammond being the home of the Bears. Does that open up the possibility of like my hometown of Portage maybe going out and getting the White Sox when their stadium is?
Oh, no, you'd like that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would definitely love that. But looking forward to it. I mean, obviously it's still going to be the Chicago Bears. They're going to keep the name. They're going to keep the logo. But to be there in Hammond, which probably isn't the best of areas, but if you could build it up, you've got the direct line from the Skyway to the train to get there. It would be incredible. Just for that area, the 219 that I grew up in. And, then you think about the state of Indiana stealing two NFL franchises over the last 40 years. That's very interesting as well.
Tony, where can people find your work and masterpieces? What are you guys working on this weekend?
Yep, thanks for having me. We'll have more IndyCar talk Tuesday night on YouTube, starting at 8 o'clock Eastern time. I'll have a Tony D podcast on Monday, talking a little bit more about the silly season and what makes sense and what doesn't. And I'm going to, speaking of the region, I'm going to enjoy this pizza from
I love it.
my favorite pizza place up in Northwest Indiana, JJ's Pizza.
There you go. You can get it at Fresh Time. We gave them some free advertising. We need to go hit them up for some advertising revenue. There you go. All right, buddy. We'll talk with you soon.
All right, take care.